Mike, are you aware of any other board members that will be joining?
I'm not, Mrs. Brashowski, I'm not. I know that Mrs. Pusateri was in touch.
Right.
I'm not sure of others.
Okay. Mr. Fleming is out of town and said he would try to jump on. And I didn't hear from Phil, Mr. Robeson. So should we just wait one more minute? Give him a few more minutes, or do you want to just get started? Hope you're on mute, Dr. Mann. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yet again, no, however you would like to go, Mr. Brashowski, we're ready to go and we're happy to wait.
Well, it's 6:30. I don't think we should delay with that. They can join us if they can get on, okay? So at this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to our April 1st, 2021 board meeting. Can we have roll call?
Yes, Mrs. Brashowski, Mr. Robeson is absent. Mr. Fleming, absent. Mrs. Brashowski.
Here.
Dr. Cadman.
Here.
Mrs. Pusateri is absent. Mr. Azar.
Here.
Mrs. Tierney.
Here.
Mr. Acker.
You're on mute.
Now, here.
And Mr. Medinsky.
Here.
Okay.
Looks like 6. Is that 6 present?
Do we have a flag, Dr.
We
Mann?
do. We do.
Okay.
Yeah, the meeting started.
Oh.
There we are.
I don't see it. Does somebody else see it?
I see a street in what looks to be Ireland or someplace like that.
Okay. All right. Well, then, hold on then. Let me stop sharing. I'll try that again.
The joys of Zoom, right?
Here we are.
There we go.
We have a
Okay.
flag?
Yep, if everyone please rise to pledge our flag.
Okay.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Dr. Mann, would you give your board report or your report, superintendent report?
Certainly will. I'm going back to the flag then. So thank you, Mr. Brashowski. I have just a brief report tonight. First and foremost, we want to congratulate the Abington Heights mock trial team. They are the state champions. They defeated Nazareth on Tuesday night. They're off to representing the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in nationals. And this was a long time coming. We've had exceptional teams year after year. Our moderator, Mr. Romansky, Mr. Gilboy, Attorney Gilboy before him. Again, a long list of people who've done really great work. We've banged on the door many times and we finally kicked it in this year. So I know everyone joins me in being so excited for the work of our mock trial team.
Absolutely.
We need a parade for the Abingtons.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
That's
yes.
right.
It's Cadman. I wanted to make a comment.
Okay.
So traditionally, our state champions have been awarded a ring or something. I would propose that apply absolutely in this case. I don't know if there's a dollar value attached, to the item, whether they pick, I can't remember. I mean, it's been a little while.
Sure.
Absolutely, they're very deserving.
Yes.
Maybe they deserve a gavel.
I vote yes.
Yes.
I agree.
Sure. And Dr. Cadman, let me tell you, these people are sharp. They are well aware of the last time this happened and discussions. Well, I appreciate your bringing it up for certain, but those discussions are already underway, I can tell you.
Well,
That's
I'm
great.
glad.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And hats off to their advisor too, Mr. Romanowski. I heard that they've all done such a great job. So hats off to all of them.
Absolutely. And while this was not the topic for tonight, I thought I would just throw up 2 quick slides. The board is aware at our last meeting, we said we were going to do a survey to see interest in change of instructional mode. And just the quick results, by about a factor of 10 to 1, those who responded at the high school, the desire was to go from virtual instruction to in-person. And again, these are not very large numbers. We have about maybe 70% of the students who are already attending full-time, but this was the result of the survey. Probably around the first, we're moving furniture and getting everything organized. So probably, the end of next week, early the following week, we'll have these students back in the building. About 8% prefer to go from in-person back to virtual. And again, these are all options. And it was a remarkably similar result from our middle school. Again, about 90% of those who responded wanted to go from virtual in. And then there were, again, about 7% of the students who were in full in-person who wanted to go back to virtual. So a net flow back into the buildings. And so again, that's just a quick report on the surveys. And elementary was, the numbers were, so many people are already in person, the numbers were so small, it really wasn't worth even making a slide, like 2 or 3 per building, one way or the other. But the reason we're here tonight, I know the board has a great interest in discussing end of the year activities, and the prom is high on everyone's list, of course. And so just a kind of a quick update as to where we are, and I know that we'll have some conversation, but with respect to the prom, Mr. Snyder has sent out some surveys to the students, and it came back both in the surveys and in subsequent discussions with our students that there's a strong preference for an off-campus location. And we are exploring a number of options. Even though the idea is that many of the students prefer to be off campus, I think there is some value in looking at an on-campus possibility, perhaps on our new turf field, bringing in some catered individual dinners or food trucks, music, activities, perhaps pods of groups of 20 or so. So there's an option, again, perhaps not a popular one, but at least an option to consider to have it on campus. We are looking at indoor, outdoor facilities. We're trying to find a place that is feasible, and I'll call the board's attention a little later, the big concern that we have. But what we also want to say and point out tonight that we believe timing is critical. And while we definitely want to have a prom that is safe, we realize that any large gathering has the potential for COVID spread. And our primary, by far, motivation is to keep everybody safe. But should there be outbreaks, even a single case, we want to be careful of close contacts and the impact that quarantining could have following the prom. For example, if the prom were held at the wrong time, things like state playoffs and plays and concerts, end of year testing, AP exams, all of that could be thrown into question. And so from an administrative point of view, we are very interested in looking at the end of the week just before Memorial Day. And in this way, should there be a need to quarantine, we'll have 10 days or so graduation is not affected, but yet we will have also had many of those very important events already take place. So we think the timing is critical. Mm-hmm. And the other area that administration has some concerns about, and that is, and why that we are concerned about having an off-campus prom, is that of dancing, right? And many of us have been to proms. I've had the privilege to be to proms for so many years. Last year was the first in decades that I hadn't been to one, and they're joyful events, they're positive, upbeat, but the fact is they are designed to minimize and eliminate physical distancing. I mean, that is really the purpose of the prom and the dancing, and that idea of dancing and having a prom, as has traditionally been done, is something that administration has very substantial concerns about. and thus the need for, continued conversation and cooperation as we try to come to the best and safest solution of this challenge for everyone involved. And so, again, there's no decisions have been made. We're actively looking at a number of different possibilities. We're actively engaged in conversation with our students. So that really is kind of the summary. So I think unless there's questions on the charts and graphs, I'm just going to stop sharing and see if there are any questions or discussion.
Mr.
Mike,
Medansky?
this is Greg. This is new information coming out with the trying to get all of Pennsylvania vaccinated. So 16 years and up, starting April 19th, can be vaccinated. Here's another variable. If individuals are getting vaccinated, should reduce the risk. Should, is what I'm saying. So I don't know how that is going to play into this. I mean, because now we're trying to, the governor is trying to get everybody vaccinated. And I know the 5th, they've gone to 1B, and I think on the 12th, they're going to 1C. But then 19th, which is a few days later, anybody 16 and above can be vaccinated or, try to get a vaccination. So that's pretty much enough time, if you still hold it to the end of May, that all these individuals that want to go to the prom could be vaccinated. Just a variable, another piece of data. So I don't know how that's going to affect the decision.
Greg, doesn't after you get vaccinated, there's this 2-week period before the second shot, and then 2 weeks after that before you're fully
It's
covered, correct?
if you're doing the 2, it's 3 weeks. So it's like, yes, if I got vaccinated today, I'd have to wait 3 weeks to get the second dose. And yes, you're right. You would have to, it's till it takes a full effect. You're right. It probably takes 1 or 2 weeks.
But I do think Greg's point is that by the end of May, that gives time for at least more vaccinations to occur, whether or not it's all of our students and that would hopefully minimize the risk. But that's something we can't predict, but we can only hope that by the end of May, there would be reduced risk due to the vaccination. That's certainly the hope. And Dr. May, what about masking while dancing? Just like you allow masking while playing basketball or any other, if they were dancing together, wearing masks, would that?
Oh, I think we would definitely have masks while dancing.
Okay, I mean,
I think there'd probably be a distinction between, like, say, a mass of 200 people dancing in a large group over the course of an extended period of time,
right,
compared to a basketball game where certainly there is, close contact, but it is not sustained over nearly the length of time, nor are there the numbers that are involved. And certainly, as I've observed proms, there's at least as much physical contact in the dancing as there is in a basketball game.
right.
Jean Kedman, I think one of the things, to keep in mind about the sports and basketball is, even though the time of one single game is limited to however long, there's multiple games played in multiple jurisdictions over multiple, time period. So I don't know, what I mean, that argument really sounds, substantial in my opinion. I just feel as though most, if not all, of the extracurricular activities are going on as planned, with mitigation. And so the, supposition or the, thinking that this can't be done and therefore it can't happen is, in my mind, not really equitable, because we thought basketball could happen with no, problems with masking, but I think we have physical evidence to show that, that's certainly not the case. And it continues. So, my big thing is, equity and fairness when it comes, to the individual activities, because everybody has something that's most important to them. So I just don't want the prom to, not get their, get their day.
Yeah, and I agree that putting it down to the end of May, when they could quarantine, they could do all virtual from May through the end of the year. Hopefully, like Greg said, vaccines would be more widely given, and I'm sure that there are mitigation efforts that we could come up with and design to try to limit, the spread. But I would like to hear more possibilities, and I certainly would like administration to dig deep and see and I know you have been. I know you've been working very hard. So I think that your presentation is in the right direction. I think, Dr. Mayen, that you're looking and working hard and trying to think of the best options. And I like so far what you're coming up with. So, Michelle, Tierney?
Yeah, I think, first of all, tonight, having this special board meeting to discuss this, I think is great that the administration has put this all together, because I think not only is it timely to have the prom, I believe it's time for us in the district to actually give some decision so that everybody can make whatever plans they need to make. So I commend the district for having this special board meeting. I think it's also important that all of the families understand the Memorial date time. And I think that that's the critical thing here. I think that if administration is willing to, give that date out, I think that everyone needs to be mindful of that. And I think that it's time for the administration to just let the student population or parents, whatever, plan their own event. They're going to do it anyway if we don't. So my thought is that the strong suggestion of waiting till at least the Memorial weekend, and whether they decide to do it on campus or off campus or at a special venue, let them get going on it, but strongly encourage that later date so that nothing else is interfered in case the cases, because I believe that we're spiking now, and I believe that a lot of it is because of this younger crowd not masking and social distancing, and we're getting more variants, and it's just a tough time right now. But I believe that these students need to have some kind of tradition or something. So the later date I think is great, and if they don't, and they still have something, what can the district do, if anything, to say you have to return with a negative test or some type of quarantining time? Dr. Mayen, is there anything that the district can do if they decide not to follow the later date?
Well, like for instance, we had a community event not long ago, not sponsored by Abington Heights, where lots of our students, young people, were outside over a weekend. And what happened, a day or two after the event, several positive tests came up. And then, by that time, we had to go back and do contact tracing, and the numbers of people that we had to quarantine were substantial. So the problem will be is that, in a dance, there could easily be, or in any event, a basketball game at a court over the weekend, there could be any number of students who themselves are COVID positive but asymptomatic and potentially spread. And then, by the time they're back 2 days and they come back, we finally identified that case, then some damage has already been done, and people then are required to quarantine. So that's the problem there. And then, of course, if someone is close contact, then if they get a positive test, they wait the 10 days, a positive test after a certain period, they get the 10 days and they're allowed to come back. But again, that's why we're saying, we really need this at a time that kind of makes sense as far as activities are concerned.
Okay, thank you.
Jean Cadman. So, Michelle, when you talk about if they plan this, if they do that, I don't understand who they are. And I think an Abington Heights prom, chaperoned, can better ensure that mitigation efforts be adhered to. And the other thing I worry about with parents or whoever they are, taking it upon themselves to plan something is the affordability for all of the students. You know, I'm not really sure how all that works. I know there's some cost to it, but, you know, they would be my concerns for it to not, you know, be under the umbrella of Abington Heights.
I agree with you 100%. I'm just hearing that there is a group of parents and students that are looking to go off premises. I don't have any plans. I don't understand anything. I agree with you 100%, Jean. It should be underneath the district. I'm just relaying information that I'm being told.
Go ahead, Rod.
So, Dr. Mann, has anybody ever privately run a prom before? I know there's discussions of it happening, a group of parents trying to potentially do it this year, but has it ever happened before?
Not in my memory has it occurred.
So I would think that the biggest risk, if it's real, that there's a group of parents that are going to try and do this, if the school doesn't put something on that's attractive enough to them, is that they're going to do it. And then the risk that we're all facing that's the biggest is that it interrupts finals and AP exams and all the May activities. So I would think that and I believe me, it sounds great to me too, to have it on the turf and have it, you know, without dinner and but the kids don't want that. 70% of the kids in the poll said that they don't want that. So unless we sort of lean into a later date and try to come up with an off-campus venue and solve between now and then as much as we possibly can, I think you really run the risk that the parents are going to do it earlier in May. And, you know, as much as, you know, everybody obviously is trying to avoid the obvious risk that we're trying to avoid, I would think that strategy might help avoid the biggest risk in the room, which is that the parents try to do something in early May.
I agree with Rod. I think if we can, like what Michelle was saying, is say that, yes, we are going to have a prom and it's going to be held end of May, maybe they won't do that, but parents are still going to do what they want to do. And if they want to have something off site, there's nothing we can do about it. That's not part of this board. I mean, all we can do is, with what data we have now, is make a decision. If we feel we want the kids to have a prom, which I think most of us do, and I'm only speaking for myself, by the way, but we're trying to do it as late as possible because of mitigating risks to all these other activities. That's all we can do. And if they want to hold another party somewhere earlier in May or end of April, we can't do anything about that. That's not our responsibility. But that could affect everything else going forward. And they have to assume that risk. We don't. So enough said.
Mr. Acker?
Yeah, you know, Greg, I agree with you to the extent that parents and kids are going to do what they're going to do. And when the weather gets nice, there are going to be gatherings, and, you know, there will be hopefully not be any adverse effects. But if there are, it's definitely on them. I think if you're going to have a prom, it definitely has to be as late as possible. And then I think you can talk about all the other possibilities, getting vaccinated, getting tested, whatever. But I think at the end, certainly we all want to see the students to have a prom for sure in some fashion.
Dr. Main, what venues, there can't be that many venues in this area that can accommodate the number of students in the senior class in an outside area. I'm sure we have a limited, have we approached any venues to see if there's even availability?
Yes, we've looked at, and one of the problems that Abington Heights faces more than others is our class size. You know, many districts are less than half our size. And so that's a challenge. But in answer to your question, I know we've reached out to the Scranton Country Club and Montdale Club. And so our approach is to actually go and try to look at what would a prom look like in this venue. And again, I think the board should address the challenge of dancing, right? I mean, that is the barrier that administration sees in this. And like, we're worried about 6 feet in eating. But I mean, those are things that I think we can overcome, right? But the real challenge I would look for your insight into is the idea of a prom and dancing, and recognizing, I think, just as a practical thing, that we could say, you know, stay 3 feet or whatever, but that, you know, has to be enforced and is not a practical thing to do. If we are going to allow dancing, I'm curious what the board would think about that.
Can't that decision be made as we got closer to the prom to see what the case count is, where the vaccines are, what's happening in the community, and then make a decision? I mean, if you're going to have the prom, you commit to it, you have
Right.
it, and then you decide what the rules will have to be based on what's happening at the time.
And that would be I mean, ideally, we'd love to see so many people vaccinated, numbers going down, as Mr. Budensky describes the scenario. We also are worried about the emergence of variants and bigger problems than even we're experiencing now. So there is that degree of uncertainty. My concern with that is, you know, let's just say we're approaching the prom the week before and we say, all right, now we can't really dance because of circumstances, then, you know, that I think does take some of the wind out of the sails.
I think where there's a will, there's a way. I think there's a way. You can make certain pockets of kids, like where that they're kind of quarantining together and they all wear their masks, and you keep those separate teams apart. I don't know. There has to be a way to do it in such a fashion. And besides, it is a risk that they would be taking. And if they quarantine afterward, if they go virtual for the rest of the school year, and they have that option, and they know if they go to the prom, they must go virtual in the event that the spread is a concern. You know, I don't know why. Let the parents and the students decide if that's something.
Well, right, but I mean, and that's an approach. Say, we have dancing, bets are off, you take the risk that you want. Because I don't think it's really fair for the expectation of the chaperones, if we have any, or administrators to be sorting through and keeping dancers apart. That is not a solution. I mean, we have to say we're in or we're not. And if we're in, we have to be able to recognize that 200 people will be dancing together. And that is something that is totally foreign to anything that we have done. And I absolutely push back, again, that a basketball game with capacity in the stadium or in the gym that's at a fraction of full capacity, or wrestling where there's no one around, where we keep people out, people are watching at home, is anywhere akin to a prom with 200 kids dancing. There's a massive difference between those two.
You'll have to have as many chaperones as students almost.
Right, and we can't put a chaperone into the crowd and say, stand apart.
Well, we can give them a yardstick and they have to keep that between them.
Jean
Sorry,
Kathy,
I'm sorry.
I have a comment. So I do keep bringing it back to the sports because I've watched them on YouTube, and I think most, I don't know, songs are what, 3-4 minutes long? That's less than a wrestling match. So you don't play song after song after song after song. Maybe they get one fast song, 3 minutes of exposure, everybody break up, you know what I mean? However long later. So, you know, and you talk about a dance, you know, I think these sporting events are dances in and of themselves, people up and down the court, you know what I mean? Like high-fiving, wrestlers, you know, intertwined and everything. So I do basically see it almost as the same thing. One person is not going to be exposed to 199 people all at one time. So I think, to Louise's point, pockets of students, masking. So the same thing would apply. I mean, you have to have your mask on, you know, and to assume or predetermine that this group, you know, is going to have masks around their necks like other groups, I don't think is fair. I think they deserve the chance.
So, I mean, and Mrs. Cow, you've been a vocal critic of athletics from the beginning, right? Are we then to say that, if I'm to understand the argument, because in your view that we've made mistakes in the past to allow sports, then that justifies making a mistake to have a dance?
I think that if we're not having the prom, I'd like to discuss canceling all the sports.
Because the sports are dangerous.
Because I think that, I'm saying
Right.
mitigation efforts. So with the prom, I think that there is still, there's the possibility of ensuring, mitigation.
It's the equality. It's like we permitted sports. We put things in place to try to mitigate the spread. We should be able to do that for the prom also.
And
I
is it
think
the
that's
board's,
what-
right, and is it the view that a prom is the same thing as a basketball game and a wrestling match? Apparently, in some views it is. I would say
No.
that.
Now,
there's-
what I'm
I
trying
don't
to,
think
what
it
I'm trying
No.
to say is it should not be predetermined that it is. And what I was hearing from the public was that there was not going to be a prom. So I was looking for, accuracy of the information that was circulating, just that there was this, predetermination, assumption that it couldn't be done, without mitigation efforts, and therefore there would be no prom. And
Right,
so,
and I'm not sure where that came from. It certainly didn't come from our office, nor was it ever communicated to the board. And we certainly, if called, would have been very happy to explain it. What we said in the beginning is always the case, that we're trying to find a good solution. We think for sure we would have a good solution if we had it on campus and we had a number of different things. But again, that's not popular. We're looking to find some outdoor combination that might work. But again, we are resistant. I mean, the board supported, I will say, right, the modified spring promise, right? Anyone who would attend this prom would be in violation of the spring promise, right? Engage in those types of dancing activities. I mean, it is on its face different from what the expectations we've communicated to people. And so, again, if the board says, I think we have to recognize, right, that if we are allowing 200 people to dance together, right, the idea that we'll have a fast song and a slow song, go sit down, come back, all right, is, with all due respect, inconsistent with how a prom works, right? And if you ask anyone who ever chaperoned a prom for the last 2 decades, they would tell you that that is not a plan for mitigation, all right? That's perhaps a feel-good response to see that it would work, when in the reality, within the first 2 songs, the entire thing breaks down and students are dancing.
So Dr. Mayor, what circumstances do you see a prom happening? What are the circumstances that you would say, okay, the prom can happen?
Well, on campus, we would have a great prom, right? Now, as I've described to some of the board members, where we would set apart certain groups, we would have food trucks, individual catered meals, music in the background, perhaps some activities we could work through. That would be different than a traditional prom, but that would be a prom, perhaps not a popular one among the kids. We are currently looking at outdoor venues, combination indoor-outdoor venues, where we want to engage in this conversation with the people there to see what can work. Where could we come up with some plan that has students separated and not dancing in large groups? Now, we're not sure that we'll be able to accomplish that, right? And so those are the challenges, and we're open to any idea from anybody. All
So
right.
I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
And I believe that by the end of May, it's going to be a whole different scene than what we're talking about right now. And I would say that if that's not the case, why don't we just have the dinner and the prom and we just won't have dancing? Like, so you book the event, people buy their tickets, they get all dressed up. And if for some reason things are horrible, then we just say, we're going to have a prom, but we can't have a dance. I personally would bet that things are going to be better and we're going to be able to do it. But if dancing is truly the only barrier, maybe it's just we have no dancing at this prom. We'll
Are you
have
talking about on campus, Louise, or off campus?
No. I'm talking about book a place off campus.
Okay.
And have one that has the outside combination, and you say things are too bad, the risk is too high, there will be no dancing. I don't think that's going to happen. I am really hopeful that by the end of May, we're going to be in a different situation. But I think that that's always an option. If you have everything, And you let them know that this is a possibility. If things do not improve, if people don't get vaccinated, if it doesn't stop it, we're gonna have a problem with that dancing.
Well, so let's set aside, like, if we use that criteria and the prom were tomorrow, would the decision be to dance or not to dance?
If the prom, I don't know. I think it wouldn't be, I would be more concerned because I think the cases are rising and things, we might be on having a surge. I don't know. It's hard to say which way this is going to go. Nobody could have predicted. Every prediction has been, unpredictable. Let me put it that way. People have not been spot on with every prediction. We can't say where it's going to be. I really don't believe we can. But
yeah, how about a venue that has inside and outside and have a dance floor outside and only let 2 or 3 tables at a time go out to dance and separate them.
Right.
Yes. And
Right.
have
And
that
those-
dinner tables,
Right.
that number on the tables, and table 2, 4, go dance. And that's it, then sit back down and give everyone an opportunity. And if you break that and you go dance, no more dance for you.
And that
Realistic though, I mean, is that's not a bad idea, Michelle, but honestly, is that going to be realistic to say only this group can dance, particularly if there's some song that everyone likes to dance to? It's
I
like,
think-
Then have them play the song
that
3
song everybody
times.
likes to dance to. Everybody in the place gets up and dances. That's
So
going
have
to
the kids come up with those. I bet you that
Yeah,
the kid, they're very
that's
smart.
right.
And I
They
think the
are.
kids will come up with options.
They will. They will.
I've been to weddings where seating and dance floor was small and seating was limited. And after the dinner, the tables were taken down. So let's suppose tables are taken
Do it the
down
other
and
way.
you have to dance in place. You have to dance where you are, with your table. And I don't know, there's
In most places now,
way.
they'll be using a DJ, not a band. They can play
Right.
that song 2 or 3 times for all those groups to get up and do that
No,
same
they don't want to
song.
hear the same song twice. They want to hear variety. But I do
They could
agree.
ask.
I think you could separate the kids into cohorts. I think
Right.
I think there's a lot of things you can do in between no dancing and dancing.
Right,
That
exactly.
You can make up your mind over the next 2 months on exactly how far can you go. But I think
Exactly.
there's 2 or 3 layers of possibilities in between dancing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I just want to emphasize, though, that is exactly what we're looking at now. And I've been saying this, right? That we're going to these venues. Now, we have a class of 260 students, right? We are limiting it to seniors. And I think we're open to the prospect of, if a senior has been dating a junior, to have that. So some flexibility with respect to this. Now, we know not all seniors will come. We think many will. We also think that there may be some extra students who may want to come because of a date or whatever this case might be. So those are discussions, right? So we're talking north of 200 students, right? And I would say that let's decide, the week before whether we dance or not, right? I'm the person who decides whether we have school or not when it snows outside, right? And those are controversial decisions, okay? So before we would put that on administration, I'm not trying to avoid a conversation, I would ask the question, would the board approve a dance tomorrow? Again, we don't know what the dancing looks like, but we have to assume that given the size of our class, there's going to be large numbers of students commingling for an extended period of time. And so is that something that this board supports going for? If tomorrow, given substantial community rate of transmission, less than what it was at its peak, many more people vaccinated, but not all. We have to set some standards because otherwise there will be recriminations as to whether we don't have the dance and we should have, or we did have the dance, and there's a serious outbreak potentially among the students.
It seems to me a lot of these decisions that we're going to have to make about how it happens depend a lot on the venue. And I just wonder if you shouldn't first develop exactly what the venues are so that you can plan on what they are. If it's a Scranton Country Club, you can go inside and outside. That gives you options that maybe you don't have. If the only thing we have is at an in-house, well, that changes the decisions that may have to be made. So I'm not sure you shouldn't first say, here are the venue possibilities and narrow it down to the best ones, and then talk about the mechanics of what happens in a prom, whether you dance in cohorts and so on, because some venue may just be too crowded in the area that you might want to dance to have it. So I think we need a little bit more information before we start to drill down into the details.
Well, right, and we are only looking at venues where there's an outdoor component, because we think even if a very big place, the space will be wasted when the dance occurs because they'll move to a central spot. So we're only looking at places that have a potential outdoor component.
But do you know if they're available?
So yes, we think that we know for sure that we can get them. Our problem though is, if we book a place with if we had it at the high school on the field, we could do it pretty much, know that it will come off, right? That we can make it work, regardless of transmission or community spread or that kind of thing, right?
What about rain?
If we, well, right. And I mean, we could postpone a prom, right? So we know we could have it. And that would be an issue with outdoor event anywhere would be, rain is always a problem. Rain's a problem with graduation, this year, right? Because we're not going to have indoor graduation this year. We'll have to have a postponement day. So we know that. But the issue is, what does it look like? And are we prepared to allow, whatever that looks like? And you're right, it's premature because we're trying to understand that very question in the venues that have indoor and outdoor components. But our fear is that we have to make a decision that says we accept large numbers of students dancing in close proximity for an extended period of time.
Do we know these venues, are they restricted for the number of people they can have in it? Has that been lifted? I don't believe so.
There are restrictions, and we believe that they would allow us and be able to claim that they are in compliance with those caps, Mr. Medensky.
But that's with having it indoors and outdoors at the same time.
Right. We're not really entertaining an indoor only solution to this.
Okay.
Dr. Mann, have you thought about having the school be a backup? Because these venues could also have their own issues. I know there was a couple weddings this last summer that were supposed to happen at local country clubs that got, literally the night before at one of them at Glen Oaks. So if that were to happen, that would be tragic for these kids, If we somehow figure out a way, worst case scenario, if we do have an off-campus event, to have some kind of backup at the school.
And the problem there is it's all logistical, right? So if we were, because again, we're talking about large numbers. And so if we were to have someone plan to feed that group, right, that's like a couple day preparation for whatever company we would have, right? And so, and then there would be, outdoor table, outdoor setup. There would be go ahead.
What if you did, you talked about the food trucks or, bringing in an outside vendor for the school, you could potentially do that. I don't know if those clubs would allow it, but if you could potentially do that there, couldn't you just mobilize that group to say, hey, you're not coming to the venue, you got to come to the school?
Yeah, I think the venue would want to be the ones providing the food because that's part of their business model.
It'd be more expensive to do it. Oh, it'd be more, they definitely would, not prefer it,
but then if they were planning for a prom and it got canceled, they would probably be more than happy to move the food somewhere else, because what are they going to do with all that food that they've already purchased? So I'm sure that they would cater the event if you had to come to the school in a contingency, right? I mean, they would have had
some of them aren't really, they might.
Well,
I mean,
if we have
the country club, that would be hard, but they
but
would.
Dr. Mann, you're talking about food trucks and all that. I bet you the country clubs would do a similar food. You could talk to them about food stations and the type of thing that you're picturing. So I think you can make this happen with the ideas that you have as far as separating and having individual meals. And I think that they can accommodate you to do, you don't have to be on the premise on our school grounds to do that. So I think those are all.
No, I
great.
agree. So as I said, the food issue is problematic, but not insurmountable, right? What I am saying is that at our own place, we would have provisions that would not have large groups of students dancing in close proximity for extended periods of time. That's the thing that we would be able to avoid, that I am not sure, but we're exploring, that we'd be able to avoid at these other venues. And to the extent that we can avoid that, it makes the prom less appealing to the students. And that's the catch.
Well, the high school, talk real quick. You're talking about food trucks in the parking lot and dancing in the parking lot and tables in the parking lot?
No, down on the, we would, I mean, the food
You're not
truck.
going to bring food trucks down in the field, and you can't put high heels on the turf.
Well, I think we were anticipating having this on the turf, as many other places are planning. Now, we wouldn't bring the food trucks onto the turf. There'd have to be, some movement there. But yes, we were thinking about having this event down on the turf under the lights with speakers, and have nice tables set up, pods of perhaps 20 students that would be, together for the time. So
Would you have tents? Would you have tents?
Well, tents,
Tent
I'm
is
thinking
not-
no,
tent is a
because, I'm sorry,
I said a tent is a room.
right.
No, not sides, just for rain.
Oh.
Just for rain.
Well,
But you can't have tents on the turf.
well, and I don't think we were thinking of tents so much. And again, if we saw, it would be like graduation. If we saw that the weather would, we would probably decide to set up at some point in the middle of the day quickly for the event at night. And if we saw that rain was coming, we would probably try to hold off till the next day. So it would be much like we do with graduation. And
You can actually put tents on the turf.
Right.
The companies that bring in these big tents, they have the ability to put postless tents.
Oh, postless, okay.
I've seen them set up on turf and grass and without damaging anything.
right.
Not
And
that
but see, the thing was, we'd like to avoid having, like in the event of a rainstorm, having all the kids together under the tent as they're waiting for the rain to go by, because that would kind of defeat the idea of having them spread out over the area. So tents were something we kind of pushed the idea away from that, hoping that we would have good weather and being prepared to move it if we didn't.
Yeah. I like the idea of doing something after your memorial date, or possibly after graduation, and finding it off premise, and allowing the students to do more of a traditional prom after all of the possibilities of closure, and let them have something off premise and use the high school as a backup.
Dr. May, what are you proposing? Or you're not yet?
What I'm proposing, right, is that we develop a prom that does not have large numbers of students dancing in close proximity for extended periods of time. And then that's my limit, that's my barrier that I am proposing. And that has real implications for what a prom looks like. All right. Now, if the board wants to, speak as a group and say that we accept large groups of students dancing in large numbers, dancing in close proximity for extended periods of time, if the board wants to say that is what you want, right, then we could have a traditional prom, provided we can find chaperones, and we'll have to look for volunteers, because again, chaperoning will be problematic in that environment, but we would invite board members to participate as chaperones. But that's the barrier that I sit right here, and that barrier prevents doing a lot of things.
But that barrier is based on today, correct? So if in 4 to 6 weeks things get improved, will you still have that same?
No, I mean, it's not. I mean, that's not chiseled in stone. We would love the idea of, but the problem is, and if we say, we're going to kind of make it at the spur, not at the spur of the moment, but at what point do we make the decision to have this happen, right, or not with the dancing?
So Jean Kevin, I think there've been some ideas proposed as to how to lessen the amount of people dancing at the same time in close proximity. So
And they were specifically, so we
they're going
can,
to have to be certain conditions agreed upon. But my recollection is that this group long ago said, you know, we'll limit it to the senior class. We're planning to do this. I mean, it sounds like, you know, they were understanding of the fact that it's not going to be, you know, the prom of 10 years ago. And the DJ, you know, would have to be instructed if the crowd starts to get too big, they stop playing, you know, regroup, rearrange, you know, redirect some people. I mean, it's not, and then if the dancing is out of control, the dancing stops. I mean, there will be restrictions in terms of the dancing portion of it, but, you know, to be able to get dressed up and, you know, go someplace, get your picture taken, you know, have a nice dinner with your, you know, immediate group, and then dancing if everybody behaves, you know, sounds better than, you know, some of the other things that have been to a senior, you know, then I don't know why that can't be a plan.
the if everybody behaves, and that's not a bad reflection on kids. I'm not saying that it's not behaving, but the idea that we're going to have upbeat, positive music with 200 kids who've been close together for all their lives, and to have dancing and to somehow have them not close together, I really would think we would have to, you know, sit down and become more detailed and say we're just going to stop the music once it happens. Again, I'm not saying that I know that for a fact, but I've seen many proms.
Just to, you know, this is April 1st. We're trying to plan, you know, we're having discussions about something that's going to happen 7-8 weeks from now, which is fine. Things change. I mean, we could, and right now we want to try to plan something, or it sounds like we want to plan something to give everybody a positive saying, hey, we're going to go forward with this. There will be restrictions. Well, in the same token, if things go worse for whatever reason, we could pull the plug either also, which is a great disappointment, but that's a possibility. I don't want to be the pessimist to Louise's optimism, but I don't believe that'll happen, but things are going to be different. But if something came out that all of a sudden there's another whatever, and everybody's starting to get sick, we'll pull the plug like 2 days or 1 day before a prom starts. Great disappointment, but it could happen too. And I think if we just say, or if we decide that we're going to do something, yes, there's going to be restrictions. What those restrictions are, we don't know yet, just yet, but we're planning for the best case scenario. You know, it gives us time to plan, and maybe other people have some good ideas that they can help us with this. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can find a place with the outdoor that could accommodate the number of people, an outdoor indoor combination. And it has to be with the total understanding that the rules are going to be determined based on what's happening with the virus, and best case scenario, worst case scenario, and the kids just have to buy their tickets knowing that that's the rules. Those are the risks. I think where there is a will, there is a way. I think we can try. I think it's worth trying to make it happen. And I think we can come up with something that everyone can accept. Nothing is without risk. I mean, you know, there will be, I understand that, some risk, but we can mitigate it, I think. And we just can't make those decisions today because we don't know what it's going to be like by the end of May.
You know, and also to Mike's point, you know, you're going to have all these people wanting to go dance. And if they're not wearing you know, hopefully they're all wearing masks. Hopefully they realize it, to have a good time. We do this. We try not to, you know, have too many people in close contact. But I mean, I'm just going to say, you know, just from experience, you know, like South Abington Township, they have those basketball courts. That first nice weekend, they were full. Half of the people were wearing masks, half of them weren't. You drive by and you're going, well, and there had to be like 40, 50 kids there in a 2 basketball court area. And some of them were playing it safe and others weren't. You know, how do you stop that? You know, except you shut it down and take the nets down, I guess. You can almost do the same thing for a dance, I guess.
Yeah, but to Rod's point, back in the beginning, if the Abington Heights prom isn't attractive enough to discourage the parents or whoever they are that are planning something like the basketball games, unchaperoned, no rules apply. It might, be earlier, then I think, setting the date, setting the rules, under the Abington Heights umbrella seems, to be a better option, in my opinion.
I might be wrong, but like my gut in listening to community members that I've talked to is that I know dancing is important. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I haven't been to a prom in over 30 years, but I get it. You've been to a lot, Dr. Mann. Like that's a big part of the prom. It seems to me, based on the survey and based on the people that I've talked to, that the thing that's going to make these kids, and these kids have been through a ton. Everybody knows that, right? They missed a lot at the end of their junior year. They've missed a lot of their senior year. So it seems to me like the biggest issue for them is that they want to get off campus and they want to, feel different than kids in school. And if we don't figure out a way to do that, I think there is a big risk that they're going to do something on their own. And I think that and I'm not saying send out another poll, but if you poll the kids and said, hey, you can either be at the Country Club of Scranton or Montvale with very limited dancing, you can dance with your couples only or in these cohorts, but you're going to have a night out away from everything else. Or you can have it at the turf and there'll be, a lot more dancing. I think that my gut is that they would rather be off campus. That's what I'd like to see us try to do. But I get it. Like we might have to make some very strict rules. Yeah, but we don't know what those rules are
Right.
today.
And I just want to make a couple points, right? First, no one is saying we shouldn't try, right? Mr. Snyder and his staff have been trying so hard on this, doing incredible work, right? And the other thing is, like, my job is to provide options to the board in everything, right? Say, this could work, this could work, this could work, right? But my job also is based on my experience to be able to tell you that that is unlikely that this will work, okay? And so I'm saying here, right, that if we have a prom where dancing is, again, we could develop a certain set of restrictions that pretty much really put the damper on dancing and be able to make it and do that, right? But that's, again, it's a prom with very, very limited dancing, I think, as Mr. Azar was describing. But I think it is not realistic to say we can have a prom, we can have dancing, but we won't have kids that are close, right? That is not, we should not put people who are at the prom trying to manage it in a position where they can't be successful. And so, again, this is premature because maybe we could have ideas around the Country Club of Scranton and Montvale. I recognize that we get it off campus. It would be very nice in the minds of many. But the only thing I think that we really should avoid, in my opinion, is the idea that we can have it and we can dance and we can keep social separation to any extent beyond, we cannot have it all. And that's something that the board will have to recognize. And if the board is prepared to say, we're going to dance and we recognize that risk, then I think the board should say that. Or if the board is saying, look, do the best you can, but avoid, again, large groups, extended period of time, close proximity, then we can do that too. But we cannot do it all.
Dr. Mann, would your view change if students were able to get vaccinated or tested before the prom?
Oh, it's all situation dependent, right? I mean, for a while there, before these last 2 weeks, I thought, oh, we're going to be fine, right? They're talking about full baseball stadiums by the time summer gets here, right? But the issue is, right, we have to plan for a prom like really soon right now. And yes, it could be better. And yes, it could be worse. Like, obviously, we are all of the idea that if it really gets to be a desperate situation, we can't have a prom if we can't have a prom, right? And the same way, if things are really great, go dance, right? By all means. But I think we have to be prepared for the gray, which is why I raised the issue of tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, conditions aren't great, but they're not bad. And so, I mean, and that's likely what we will face some idea, like it won't be great, it won't be good, it won't be terrible. What are we going to allow under those conditions? And that's the planning that we have to make this successful. So we communicate fairly to all involved so they know what to expect.
Michelle?
It is April 1st. Most proms have their date, their venue in January. The chances of our student population to be able to find a venue after or right before Memorial Day weekend or Memorial weekend or after are going to be very, very slim as it is. So the longer we debate this and work on this, why don't we send the committee out to go and find if there is a place that is available after or the Memorial weekend or after weekend to see what the options are, and then to allow that committee to create some type of a venue where everybody feels that dancing is safe, eating is safe, and the venue believes that it's there's enough student that, you know, the number of people that can be in their place. So why don't we send out the committee to go find places for the dates that you're suggesting, Dr. Mahan, because those are the safest dates for our student population, and see what happens.
I think you said that those venues were available.
Yeah,
those
we could book one tomorrow for the exact date that, you know, when we count all the days we think is the ideal
Right.
day. And I want to actually book it because I don't want to lose it,
Right. I
right?
think we
But-
should book it.
but then in the
Why
same
don't we
way-
book it? Why don't we book them?
And because we may be able to tell, we might have to tell people, look, there's going to be as Mr. Azar was saying, one of the scenarios is you're going to go there, you're going to eat, we'll have music in the background, but it'll be very limited,
Right. I said,
very
right.
limited.
And I said that as well, right?
Yeah.
That the option, the worst case scenario is there'll be no dancing. And I think that is a very reasonable thing. You say,
That's right.
here's the date, here's the prom. Worst case scenario, there will be no dancing at this prom. Best case scenario, there will be. And maybe it'll be somewhere in between.
And then if you need chaperones, well, we can draw straws, and some of us board directors will go.
Well, no, I think we would maybe get a van and send them for you, not drawing straws. Let me ask this. I will say myself, if the prom were held tomorrow, I would be, given the circumstances that we're in, I would be opposed to large groups dancing in close proximity for extended periods of time.
I would agree with that. And so, and I think if you say to the students, this might be the case. And if your prom is tomorrow, this would be the case. Is this, you know, and I ask them if they would go under those
ask
circumstances.
them.
I could buy into that, Mr. Brashowski. I can buy into that. If we could say to them, look, right, if things are approximately as they are now,
Right.
understand your dancing opportunities will be limited.
Very, very limited.
Right.
Right.
And here are the two other scenarios, right? We have vaccinations and low transmission, and we get to dance a lot.
Right.
And we all are hoping for that.
Right.
The other scenario is that you may not get a refund for this ticket that you buy. Because if there's a, you know, like if it really is bad, and let's say the governor shuts us down because of something, that's the other side of the issue.
Well, if the venue has to cancel, I think they would get a refund. But sure, if you wanted to present it now,
Sure.
that's right.
And let them make the decision whether or not they want
Exactly.
to do that or not. Yeah.
Right.
But
Right.
even if we have to put a deposit on a venue that you think is going to be the safest we can,
Right.
I think we should do that. And if we lose that, so be it. You know,
Right.
that's the cost. That's the risk we take. I'd be willing to spend the money just to try to develop some.
Right. Get the plan, get the
Go
date, and
forward
now
with
they,
the plan.
yep.
I'm
And
okay
that
with
plan's
that.
going to change. Guarantee that plan's going to change.
But let me ask, because I think this is important for everyone to weigh in, just so I know, because I mean, two people said, yeah, that seems okay. That if circumstances are approximately in the day of the prom where they are today, then we would not have, and these are the criteria, large groups of people dancing in close proximity
Yes.
for extended periods of time. Those are the
Agreed.
criteria. And I think, and Mrs. Petrowski said that seems reasonable. Others may have said, where are we on this? So, because I think it's important. We're here, all here.
Well,
we gathered for
okay,
this
so
purpose.
Mickey, would you be comfortable with that?
Absolutely.
Jean,
Yes,
Greg,
Yes,
Warren? Rod?
Yes.
Okay,
I do just want to say, I wouldn't want to present it to them as if there will be no dancing. I think large numbers, close proximity for extended times,
Agreed.
we've already discussed, can be modified in many different ways.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that means no dancing today.
Yeah.
No.
let-
That's right.
No,
let
That's right.
the-
but
Like
It-
couple,
it-
well, then-
circles like they have at
He said,
recess in
look,
middle school, right?
then let's have, and I say this only with half a smile, right? Let's have a committee of board members join us with students and administrators to help understand what that looks like and the
Fine.
challenges that we.
So sign me up.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay. All right, because then it is a collective effort, because,
yeah,
you know, you have certain expertise, massive expertise in certain areas, but like maybe running a dance, you'd be a little rusty, right? And as I am,
She-
Hey,
And-
I ran 2 weddings a couple Junes ago. I'm,
Yeah,
there
I
you go,
actually,
right?
Jean and I actually ran plenty of proms at Abington Heights in our day.
There you go. All right. So let's have this then. And I love, this is a great outcome, right? So we have some general guidelines that we could communicate.
mhm,
We don't have specifics, because how could we in April for something that
right,
Right,
is occurring?
right.
exactly.
We have a commitment from the goodwill of a lot of people to try to do the right thing in every area, the best possible experience in the safest reasonable conditions.
Right,
Let's engage this, and I'm going to encourage Mr. Snyder to try to maybe book the places, because the date, I think we all can agree on, there's a certain sweet spot on the calendar that if there is a bad outcome, it does the least amount of damage. right?
Okay.
So-
I would support your date. I would support your date because you know all the important dates.
Like, we counted up, right? We don't want to do it at the end, we'll lose graduation, we don't want to do it too far in, we lose state playoffs. So we
Right.
have a good date. And so let's book the date at the facility. Let's take the field trip over, once we get the committee going, is what this will look like. And let's plan a great prom, but one that is safe at the same time.
Do you know that date? Are you able to say the date?
I'm thinking that I think the 27th, which
it's a Friday.
is just before
Friday.
Memorial Day. Is that right?
Friday, Memorial Day? Yeah, I think that's right.
Thursday, Friday, that week, because it's 10 days before graduation and it's far
28th.
past. So the 20, one of those days that week.
Yep.
We,
And the 28th
I
is a
forget
Friday.
right now.
I don't know if that'd be a Friday.
so we have a good plan. I think we have a good plan now.
I do too.
Dr. Vitale, you're suspiciously silent here tonight in your first board meeting, not getting away without offering your insight.
I think it's a good plan to clearly communicate that it may be a traditional prom or it may be dancing kind of with an asterisk.
Can safely say, I don't think it's going to be a traditional prom, but
No, it won't be.
it will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it would just be as is. I think there will be restrictions, of course, probably at minimum, there'll be mask wearing. But
Oh, yeah.
I am optimistic that with mask wearing, that the case numbers are going to support us allowing them to just have a great night. So
I like your,
All right.
I can't help it.
I'm with you.
Well, let's be hopeful.
I'm with you. We're all with you. Yep.
Let's be hopeful.
Okay.
Anything else before we break for the holidays?
No,
Can I bring up one subject, please?
Well, we have
It
public
doesn't-
comment too. We can't forget.
yeah,
Right.
Oh. Oh.
yeah. Okay, so that concludes your superintendent's report.
It
Dr.
does. Thank you. Mercifully.
So if there is any member of the public that wishes to address the board, please raise your hand, state your name and where you're from, and just remember that you have 3 minutes for your comments. It will not be a question and answer session. It is for your comments, and then Dr. Mann and the board will try to address all the concerns at the end. And at this time, I don't see any speakers, Dr. Payne. Oh, Philip Hurricane.
Hello, I'm in Clark Summit, 2 kids in South Ave Elementary. They're young. Neither of those kids will be attending prom. However, that doesn't mean I don't have a dog in this hunt, because I live in this community. And I'd like you to weigh what you're talking about here on the one hand, with the possibility that you may be talking about organizing a super spreader event. So it's not to be taken lightly. I would also parenthetically add that I think it's unfair to characterize Dr. Cadman's contributions over the last few weeks as being against school sports. I think it's probably nicer to say that she was against taking unnecessary risks in venues like that. But it struck me that the severity of what we're talking about here should be underscored. And I think at one point, Dr. Mann, you asked Ms. Brzezinski if it was held today, would you encourage dancing? If you look at the numbers, if that's a gray area, we're in a lot of trouble. That should be a very easy no. And so just be aware of what we're setting out to do in our community that will affect students, parents, grandparents, local businesses who can't open because there's another wave. It's pretty serious. That's all I need to say. No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jules Colombo.
Unmute. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jules. I am the senior class president. I believe you all received an email from me around 2 weeks ago with the proposal of prom. I thank you, Mrs. Burzakowski. I'm sorry if I don't say that correctly, for emailing me about the workshop tonight. I'm just a little confused, honestly, because I was personally emailed by my principal, Mr. Snyder, on Friday, that after meeting with him and discussing some options of prom, he informed me that after speaking with Dr. Mahan that anything prom related would not be planned by the school. It would be parent planned, and there would not be an Abington Heights sponsored dinner of prom. So that was a week ago. So I'm just a little confused. Some parents have organized an event and have a date and a catering facility. There are guidelines, contact tracing, mask, things have been taken care of. It's all a come if you would like, senior only. So I'm just personally confused as to why now and why I had not received an email. With all due respect, I appreciate this effort, but I'm just a little confused as to why all of a sudden. If someone could give me some clarification on that, I'd appreciate it.
I'd love to get that clarified as well.
To our knowledge, the prom was still under discussion. So I am not aware that there was ever a decision made not to have a school sponsored event. So I'm as surprised as you are by that.
No, and I'm equally surprised. I've been involved in the conversations. Yes, we've said we have very substantial concerns, as I've said tonight, over the idea of dancing in a traditional prom setting. We have concerns about eating in dinners, although not insurmountable. We have those concerns. So we've been, I think, very consistent in communicating that we have serious concerns. And even as we launch our plan tonight, if the prom were tomorrow, there'd be extreme limitations on dancing. So I think that this is very consistent with what we have been saying all along, in addition to looking at other alternatives. So I wasn't involved in any of the conversations that were referenced, but I think administration has been very consistent in their efforts to have reasonable expectations, to say we want to try something, but not to create false hope in saying that we could have something that we really would not end up having.
So Jules, are you saying that there is already an event, Jules, planned?
Yes. It has been parent organized, May 14th. It's at the Country Club of Scranton. All outdoor event. And the entire senior class is invited. No guests from outside school or underclassmen. This is strictly the Abington Heights class of 2021. It is not related with the school at all. That means like no funds will be taken from our class event. It is strictly parent based because again, I could forward you all the email from Mr. Snyder. And nothing against Mr. Snyder. I appreciate all that he is doing for my class this year. We have had wonderful talks, and as far as a class day, we're in the process of planning a class day together. So for our students on the turf. So I really appreciate that he's working with it. But as far as what I was concerned, I will email you all that. But yes, there is already in motion something else.
So Jules, this is Greg Medensky. Was this, an unofficial prom for the senior class? Is that how it was spelled out to everybody?
It was released to a parent group on Facebook, just simply because obviously there's a lot of questions. A lot of people, especially girls, I know some of you might have daughters, are looking to buy dresses, and it's not the kind of thing that you just do in a weekend. So we already had some questions, and we had just I personally addressed some parents and said, we have made some progress in finding a date. So yes, it has been announced as a non-Abington Heights affiliated prom for the seniors.
Okay, so
I don't think we can solve this here tonight. I think we're going to have to find out more about that, Dr. Main, and probably talk about how that would impact any decision we would make. But we're not going to obviously be able to iron out all those details here tonight. So
I would suspect that, well, first, Abington Heights could not be involved in any aspect of that event. And I would suspect that many athletes, for example, people who are involved in orchestra and other places would be, really challenged to consider whether they wanted to attend such an event. And certainly I would be the last one to recommend having such an event around that time frame.
right. So perhaps we have to have further discussion. I know we told you tonight, just go book a venue, but I don't know. I think we have to find out what's going on with this before you go ahead and do that. Do you agree, or do you want to just go ahead and book a venue anyway?
I wouldn't be, my own opinion is that I would not be impacted by these other events. That we would move ahead with the idea that, we came up with a plan tonight. The board weighed in on what it wanted to do. And I think if we wait until, I'm not sure, till we have better information, we run the risk, I think, as was pointed out earlier, of not having the venue.
Mrs.
I
Petrossi,
agree.
may I ask Jules a question? Jules, you are the senior class president. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible for you to go back to your committee and share with your committee what you've heard tonight and the recommendation by the district to have your venue and your dance through the district, but that a later date? And is it possible for you to change your date to the date that this district is suggesting?
Just to clarify, that date is around Memorial Day weekend, correct? Is it the
Yes.
27th you said?
I believe it's the Friday night of the Memorial Weekend. We're not sure what day that is.
May 28th.
May
28th.
28th.
Okay.
And bring this back to all this information back to your committee. And hopefully there's no penalty with you maybe changing the date.
I can tell you right now that at our venue, that is not available. That date's not available. We secured the May 14th date based on what was available and for an outdoor setting. So at all local venues, honestly, I have kind of contacted many different places, and at this point, between graduation parties, weddings, pushback from last year, and just other events, it is very, very difficult to find a venue, especially even though it would be just our class, to fit the capacity with like social distancing guidelines and such outside. So that's why we moved forward with this date, because it was kind of like perfect. I understand your concerns about spring sports and such. But it was initially, I don't know if any of you actually know this, but there was a date on record for prom with Fiorelli's, because usually, again, I'm not really sure if you guys are aware of this, but the junior class usually typically plans
Right.
prom, and their advisor, Mrs. Flanagan, she's a fabulous woman. I don't know if any of you have had the pleasure of meeting her, has been a teacher at Abington Heights for 20 years and an advisor for just as long. She has planned proms and had the date at Fiorelli's, and she was so concerned about all of this. And she was also working with Mr. Snyder, and obviously that was for May 15th. So that's kind of like where we based it off of the date. Obviously that didn't work out with that venue because it's all indoors. So that just wouldn't be ideal at all. So that's why we explored other options. But I do commend her efforts. She's a fabulous woman. If you ever have a chance of meeting her and talking about her experiences with Abington Heights, I think it would benefit all of you to get her perspective with all of her years. But
Yeah, this is quite a dilemma and quite a situation. I think that we might need to kind of all revisit this.
The 27th, if I just, I got a text, it's the 27th.
So
is
it's
the
Okay.
date that you wrote, yeah,
okay,
27th is Thursday night.
right.
That's a Thursday night.
okay. But as far as like spring sports go, like yes, I understand we have a spring promise, but it's not as such as the winter promise that there would be such repercussions. And this is obviously not like, this is purely volunteer based. This is not like a mandatory event at all. That it is come if you are comfortable here, and all social distancing guidelines will be released to whoever upon request and adhered to. So really, there's nothing as I could see as an issue with this day. And it's further back from graduation that if anyone needed to, God forbid, quarantine, that it wouldn't affect the graduation date, which at this time I believe is, I don't know if you guys officially changed it to June 11th. Has that been decided yet?
It's the 11th. It's Friday the 11th.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if that was officially changed in the calendar yet. I know there was talk of it, so I just wanted to make sure. But that leaves ample time for any sort of quarantine if need.
I think we're not going to be able to solve this problem tonight. I agree with Mrs. Brashowski. I think the best thing we can do, the administration certainly has the viewpoint of the board and knows what the board will support. And I think administration can work it out with the senior class on what's going on, and then make a decision very quickly on whether to book a venue or not. I don't think you need any decision.
And the board members can join you, Mike.
I think you got the input you need, and I suggest you just move forward and work it out with the seniors. If they want to move their event, fine. If they want to stay with their event, that's fine too. But we won't settle it tonight.
Well, I mean, we're intending, and so, I mean, we're intending to book on I want to immediately, like very soon, book the venue.
Isn't this a situation you can resolve in a day with the kids?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think we would be far from resolving it. We're not sure how many people would come. We also wouldn't know how many people, knowing what we would try to communicate as an option, might then say, well, I'll go to the District 1 or not. So we will not have a definitive.
I don't think you want to have both.
I think what Dr. Main is saying is we'll let them decide which venue they want to go to. And maybe it's split. Maybe 150 kids go to one and 150 go to another. Or maybe, I don't know,
I think you should book it.
Let's clarify the date. Is it a Thursday, May
Yeah.
27th? Is
Yes.
that what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
So
And
is
that's
there
why
no-
the club would be open. The club would be open the 27th? Okay.
Well, no, I don't think it's the Scranton Country Club. I think it's,
Montel?
yeah, I think
We're currently having, like, where our event is currently is Scranton Country Club. The proposal
Okay.
I sent you all was for Montel, but since like the time, like I didn't hear a response, it was kind of, we had to explore other options.
Okay.
And I think the country club might be available on the 27th too. And again, that was part of our effort to go out and look to see. But if we are thinking to have a prom, everyone who goes to whatever event occurs will want to come to the prom, I would think, that we would hold. So that, you know, that, and if, for example, someone or group of students said, you know, we would be uncomfortable perhaps going to one, but we prefer to go to the other, then I think it would be, you know, we would be promoting the event if we said we weren't having our own at the end of the year.
I agree with Dr. Main. I think you should book the 27th, and I think you should book it at the Country Club of Scranton because that's what the seniors apparently wanted. If that's available on that date,
Well,
I would book it, and then I would approach the seniors and try to lobby them to not have their event.
Is there no
I would,
school
I
on
would,
Friday? Is Friday off? Is that why it's a Thursday
I
night?
think we're going to give some flexibility on the Friday.
okay. So that would be a nice thing for the seniors
Yeah,
to
Mr.
do a
Azar,
Thursday
I
night
think-
dance.
Yeah, Mr. Azar, I don't think we need to pigeonhole the administration. Let them go see both and then come up with a plan that is the best. And I think we have a long history of actually liking both places. But you know,
Yeah, that's fine. If you want to, I meant more that you should book it. Like,
yeah. Oh,
I agree with you that you should move ahead and be, you know, lead
Yeah.
and not wait for discussions with them and try to approach the senior class and the committee and get them to come on board with you. But I wouldn't delay the process.
So what does the board have a preference as to?
I would
No.
say this, I would say that it's up to the administration to have the students understand that the prom is going to be Thursday night, and the Jules and her committee that has worked so hard to do hers, I would say that should be changed and everyone should go to this one because of the safety and the dates that you have put. As long as you can guarantee that you can get that club or that venue for that Thursday night. And let the students understand that it's that timing because of all of their commitments for graduation safetiness.
Okay.
So we'll book one of the two venues
Right.
for the 27th.
Okay,
We'll engage in some conversations as to how to make it the best possible prom in the safest possible manner, understanding they're, you know, sometimes at odds, the two.
right.
And we'll have some very good conversations leading up to then, and then we will hope for improving conditions as the date approaches.
Okay. That sounds like a plan.
We might have some more people, or no, I guess not.
Jean, you raised your
That
hand.
was me. I was playing with the buttons.
Okay.
I was checking to see if anybody else, had their hand
Okay,
raised.
Gene Cadman, you can say what you want.
And I asked,
No,
asked
Dr. Mann, please mute Mrs. Dr. Kim.
No.
Kidding. Okay, looks like Zoe Detter. Zoe, you're muted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is actually Zoe's mom, Judy. I'm using her email. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
First off, I'm thrilled to hear that there is a prom discussion taking place as a parent of a senior. I've heard a lot of discussions among the seniors in terms of what's important to them. I think Mr. Azar was spot on in terms of his description on what the students are looking for. I do want to say I applaud Jules Colombo for all her efforts and for speaking up at the board meeting this evening. It seems like there is a breakdown somewhere in the communication between the senior class, the administration, and the school board. So my only comment really is if there's going to be a committee that is pursuing sites, discussing the details of a prom, please involve representatives from the student class. They have some fabulous ideas. They know their peers and what's of interest to them for this particular evening. This class of 2021 feels forgotten, and we do owe it to them to give them a safe celebration. So having said that, please involve the students, and thank you for the amount of time you're devoting to the discussion tonight. As a parent, is appreciated.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the board? I don't think so. Mrs. Tierney, did you have one thing you wanted to bring up? That was not on the agenda?
It is not about the prom. It is about a couple of phone calls that I've received in the last couple months from parents. And now that kindergarten registration is starting, and we've identified that this year that there's been a lot of younger kids that haven't had the care that they've needed as far as babysitting and preschool and all-day kindergarten. So I have sent out an email to the board and no one has responded. I would really like for the district to revisit the all-day kindergarten possibility in the future. So we could maybe get an all-day program, maybe a center, a kindergarten center. So we could use one building for all of them, because I know our buildings are small, but to just revisit the possibility of an all-day kindergarten.
Okay, I mean, I certainly think that's a worthwhile discussion, but
Yes.
we'll have to bring that up at another board meeting. But thanks for bringing that up, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Okay, what's left on our agenda? I think that was it. Anybody else have any other comments? Dr. Main, did you want members of the board to, you said let's have a few board members come and meet with students and administration? Are you?
I have your email address. I have your email addresses.
Okay.
I'll be reaching out with surveys.
Okay. All right. We will, we'll look for
I mean,
that.
I could take names now, but I think we'll see what's going on with the high school. We'll get the
Okay.
meeting together with the students and the administration, and
And we'll have to iron out this little miscommunication that apparently occurred. We'll have to figure out.
Yeah. And what I'll tell you is, like, it's I mean, we're early and we are talking about, like, for instance, Fiorelli's had a thing in the middle of May. And then as we look at it and we think about it, it's like, well, that's just not the time, right? So these conversations, and the only thing I guarantee you is that whatever we said tonight will be different when the prom in May comes around.
Right.
That's
I'm
the
sure.
only sure thing I will promise you tonight.
Right.
And if someone goes back and says, well, you said on this night,
Right.
well, things
Well,
will
yeah, we all know, I think everyone understands that we really can't predict, and we will have to respond and react to whatever's happening at the time. So if things go, get bad, then we'll have to respond. If things are better, then that will change our direction too. So I think we can be nimble enough. We've learned that over the past year. We have to be nimble. We can't, nothing is promised. So, okay. Can we have a motion to adjourn? Anybody? Motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Second.
meeting adjourned.
So
Good night, everyone.
Happy spring break.
Take
All
care.
right. All right.